Hey, welcome to Agnes Thompson's channel. My name's Nicole, and I'm going to share my story with you.
My name is Nicole, and at 78 years young, I find my days in the tranquil embrace of Vermont to be a tapestry woven with cherished memories and the quiet rhythm of nature. Our small town, nestled amidst the rolling green hills and whispering maple trees, has always resonated with this symphony of life. For decades, that symphony was exquisitely complemented by the gentle, insistent hum of my beehive. Not just any beehive, mind you. This was the family beehive. It wasn't merely a wooden box filled with insects. It was a pulsating heart of our heritage, a living, breathing connection to the generations who had worked this very land. Its lineage traced back over a century, each queen a direct descendant of the last, each drop of amber honey a taste of our collective history, distilled from the wild blossoms and robust maples of our ancestral home. I maintained it with a reverence that bordered on the sacred. My hands, though showing the undeniable etchings of time, still possessed an innate dexterity when tending to my precious colonies. I knew them intimately, every drone, every worker, every majestic queen. Their unique temperaments, their intricate rhythms, their individual contributions to the golden nectar they so diligently produced were all part of a language I had learned to speak over a lifetime. It was my legacy, my passion, my quiet joy, a profound source of peace and purpose in my later years. My grandson, Ethan, a bright-eyed boy with an insatiable curiosity, used to spend countless hours by my side, mesmerized by the intricate, almost mystical, dance of the bees. He would ask an endless stream of questions about their complex lives, their hierarchy, their communication, and the incredible engineering of their comb. I envisioned passing this precious tradition, this profound connection to nature's wisdom to him. I saw in his young eyes a glimmer of understanding, a sensitivity that I believed would allow him to truly appreciate the profound value of this living legacy. But as often happens, Ethan grew up. Like so many of his generation, he became irrevocably swept away by the relentless current of the modern world. He moved far from our quiet Vermont haven, drawn to the glittering allure of a career in tech, where the only buzzing was from servers and smartphones. Our conversations, once rich with the wonders of the hive and the wisdom of the natural world, gradually dwindled into fleeting, almost transactional calls about his latest projects, promotions, and the dizzying pace of Silicon Valley. The connection, though not broken, felt increasingly attenuated, like a thin, stretched thread. My son, David, however, presented a different, far more immediate challenge. He chose to remain closer to home, geographically at least. But his mind, unlike Ethan's, was perpetually buzzing with schemes, always on the hunt for the next quick buck, the easiest path to financial gain. He saw the hive not as a sacred trust, a repository of ancestral wisdom, but as an antiquated curiosity, a dusty, inconvenient relic of a bygone era, an unused asset ripe for exploitation. "Mom, it's just a bunch of bugs," he'd scoff, a dismissive wave of his hand accompanying the words, whenever I attempted to share a new insight about the bees' incredible resilience or the latest scientific discovery about their complex intelligence. "You're too old to be lugging those heavy boxes around. It's time to let go of the past. It's not efficient." His words, sharp and unfeeling, stung far more deeply than any bee ever could. I'd patiently try to explain the delicate ecological balance the bees maintained, the vital importance of sustainable beekeeping practices, the intrinsic, immeasurable value of the hive beyond mere monetary gain. I'd speak of the intricate dance of pollination, the crucial role bees played in our local ecosystem, the very survival of the apple orchards and berry fields that defined our landscape. But his eyes would glaze over, a clear sign of disinterest, already mentally calculating the market value of the old wooden boxes, the honey, and anything else he could monetize from my cherished sanctuary. He'd nod impatiently, his attention already elsewhere, clearly consumed by his relentless pursuit of profit. My attempts to share my wisdom, to offer him a piece of our family's living history, a tangible link to our roots, were consistently met with cold indifference, sometimes even thinly veiled amusement. It was profoundly disheartening, like trying to converse with a brick wall meticulously plastered with dollar signs. He believed my methods were hopelessly outdated, my passion for beekeeping a quaint, senile folly. The air around us felt thick with his unspoken judgment, a palpable sense of impatience, an eagerness to move on, to modernize, to cast aside anything that didn't immediately fit into his neat, profit-driven worldview. He truly was a product of his time, a fast-paced, consumer-driven culture that valued instant gratification and material accumulation above all else. This worldview, I realized, actively distanced people from the deeper connections, the slow, nourishing rhythms of life that sustained me. It was frustrating, heartbreaking even, to witness something so profoundly precious dismissed with such casual disdain. I could sense his growing impatience, the way his gaze would linger on the hive, not with appreciation or understanding, but with a calculating glint that I, with years of observing human nature, knew all too well. I knew he was up to something, but the precise nature of his scheme remained elusive. Then, the insidious creep of illness. I had been feeling a bit under the weather for several days, a persistent, rattling cough that confined me to my bed, draining my energy and clouding my usually sharp mind. David, ever the opportunist, offered to check on things around the house, a gesture I, in my weakened and trusting state, foolishly welcomed. He bustled about, making a grand show of tidying up, bringing me cups of soothing tea, his voice laced with a concern that I now recognize as entirely feigned. I suspected nothing, lost in the haze of my fever. Until a few days later, when, with a newfound surge of energy, I finally felt well enough to venture outside, drawn by an unspoken longing for the comforting presence of my bees. I walked, with a slow but determined gait, towards the familiar spot where my beehive had stood for generations, a place where I had found solace, purpose, and profound connection for so many years. My heart nearly stopped. The hive was gone. Just an empty, scarred patch of earth where the vibrant life force had once thrived. A vacant, chilling silence now occupied the space where the comforting hum of thousands of lives once vibrated, a continuous testament to life's persistent cycle. A cold dread, far more chilling than the brisk Vermont autumn air, seeped into my bones, followed swiftly by a wave of disbelief. My hands trembled uncontrollably as I surveyed the empty patch of earth, the ghost of my hive haunting the space. It was as if a vital part of me had been violently ripped away, a living extension of my soul brutally severed. The anger, hot and sharp, ignited within me, quickly followed by an overwhelming sense of betrayal, a feeling that resonated deep within my very core. He had underestimated me, assuming my age made me weak, my love for the hive a sentimental folly. He truly believed he could just take what was mine, what was ours, and simply move on, without consequence, without a single backward glance. He was wrong. Oh, so terribly, utterly wrong. He forgot that I know every bee in the hive. And now he would know what a real sting is. The game, he didn't realize, had just begun. The initial, agonizing shock of discovering the desolate, empty space where my beehive once stood quickly transmuted into a simmering, unyielding fury. How could David? How could my own son, the flesh of my flesh, do something so brazenly callous, so profoundly disrespectful, so utterly devoid of empathy? He knew, intimately, how much that hive meant to me, how it was intrinsically linked to my very identity, to the interwoven tapestry of my family's history, to the very essence of who I was. A cold, creeping chill permeated my being, not from the crisp Vermont autumn air, but from the stark, hard realization that his dismissive attitude wasn't merely indifference, it was a calculated, deliberate disregard for my wishes, for my deepest values, for my very existence. When I finally confronted him, his face, typically expressive, was a carefully constructed mask of feigned innocence, quickly replaced by a defensive, almost aggressive sneer. "Mom, it was old. Falling apart. I did you a favor," he rattled off, avoiding my piercing gaze, his voice too loud, too forced. "Someone offered a decent price for it, and honestly, you're not getting any younger." It was time to clear out the junk. The casualness of his confession, The blatant, easily disproven lie about the hive's condition. It had been meticulously maintained, a testament to my tireless dedication and love, only fueled the inferno of my anger. A favor? I echoed, my voice surprisingly steady despite the profound tremor that shook my entire being. You sold my hive, David. Without a word. Without asking. It was not yours to sell. He shrugged, a dismissive gesture that spoke volumes, radiating an infuriating arrogance. It's just a beehive, Mom. Get over it. There are more important things. Just a beehive. His words echoed in the cavernous chambers of my mind, each syllable a fresh, lacerating wound. He truly didn't understand, or perhaps refused to understand. He saw only an inanimate object, a commodity to be bought and sold, a means to an end. While I, with every fiber of my being, saw a living legacy, a pulsating heart of our family's connection to the land, to the cycles of nature, and most profoundly, to each other. The conflict was immediate and stark, a brutal clash between my deep-rooted reverence for tradition and a shallow, grasping materialism. He had no conception of the depth of the history he had so carelessly discarded, the intricate stories woven into every single drop of that golden honey. I felt an overwhelming sense of alienation, a profound, aching disconnect from the person I had raised, the child I had nurtured with such unwavering love. My heart ached, not solely for the lost bees, but for the devastatingly lost connection with my own son. I observed the chilling indifference in his eyes, the utter absence of remorse, and this chilling realization solidified my resolve. I could not, let this betrayal stand. He had utterly underestimated me, assuming my advanced age rendered me weak, my profound love for the hive a mere sentimental folly, easily dismissed and forgotten. He genuinely believed he had won, that his clever little maneuver had gone unnoticed, or at least unchallenged. But he had overlooked one crucial detail, one profound truth. I had spent a lifetime observing, learning, and intimately understanding the subtle nuances of my bees. I knew how to watch, how to wait, how to meticulously uncover hidden truths, how to read the unspoken language of intent and deception. My mind, far from fading into senility as he clearly presumed, sharpened with a new, formidable purpose. My wisdom, often derided as old-fashioned, now became my greatest asset. I began to observe David. Not overtly, not with accusations or overt suspicion, but with the quiet, unwavering patience of a seasoned beekeeper studying a new, unpredictable colony. I noticed the relentless checking of his phone, the hurried, hushed whispers he'd engage in from the other room, his voice carefully modulated, almost furtive. I saw the unusual, often oversized, packages that started arriving at his house, delivered by unmarked vans. He was perpetually in a rush, always consumed by the next big thing, always dismissive of anything that didn't immediately generate profit or advance his nebulous schemes. I also began to notice something else, something subtle but profoundly significant. My neighbor, Mrs. Gable, a delightful woman with a well-earned reputation for local gossip and an even greater penchant for knowing every single happening on our quiet street, innocently mentioned seeing a new, rather expensive-looking truck in David's driveway shortly after the hive mysteriously disappeared. She didn't think much of it, just a fleeting, passing comment, but for me, it was enough to plant a formidable seed of suspicion, a tiny but vital clue. I started taking my evening strolls past his house more frequently, ostensibly for my health, my doctor-recommended exercise, but in reality, I was watching, observing every detail. I paid meticulous attention to the comings and goings, the unfamiliar faces, the unusual patterns of activity. He was careless, overconfident in his perceived ability to deceive an old woman. He didn't realize that my quiet demeanor, my gentle appearance, hid a mind as sharp and precise as a newly honed blade, capable of dissecting every detail. The tension within me coiled tighter with each passing day, a spring winding relentlessly. He remained oblivious, reveling in his assumed victory, convinced he had pulled off a clever little trick, but I was diligently building my case, meticulously collecting each piece of evidence, like a bee gathering pollen, one careful grain at a time. The initial, searing sting of betrayal had, by now, given way to a quiet, unwavering determination. He may have sold my hive, but he could not, would not, sell my spirit or my unyielding commitment to justice. The game of cat and mouse had begun, and the mouse, he would soon discover, possessed a hidden strength he couldn't comprehend. The more intensely I observed David, the clearer it became that the beloved Beehive, my cherished legacy, was merely the visible tip of a far larger, more insidious iceberg. My son, the one I had poured my heart and soul into raising, the one I had nurtured with such boundless love and unwavering hope, was tangled in something far more intricate, more dangerous than a simple, opportunistic sale. His phone calls, once sporadic, became maddeningly frequent, more hushed, often punctuated by frustrated, almost desperate sighs that carried faintly on the wind from his open windows. He started staying out late, his car returning at odd, pre-dawn hours, its headlights cutting through the pre-dawn darkness. His once tidy house, always a point of pride for him, became a beacon of disarray, neglected and unkempt. I even managed to overhear snippets of his hushed conversations from his backyard when I was weeding my flower beds adjacent to his property, cryptic phrases about investments, partners, and returns that sent a fresh shiver down my spine, chilling me to the bone. The money from the Beehive, I now realized with a sickening certainty, was likely just a minuscule fraction of a larger, far more dubious financial enterprise, a mere seed in a garden of ill-gotten gains. I vividly remembered a particular conversation I had overheard, a frantic whisper through his open window during one of my strolls. "The old woman won't know," he'd muttered, his voice laced with an infuriating confidence. "She's too out of it. She signs whatever I put in front of her." The dismissive tone, the blatant disrespect, the sheer audacity of his words served only to fuel the inferno of my resolve, hardening my determination. He consistently underestimated me at every turn, clinging to the delusional belief that my age automatically equated to senility, that my quiet nature was synonymous with ignorance, that my trust was a weakness to be exploited. But I was far, far from out of it. My mind, honed by years of intricate beekeeping, of observing the subtle complexities of nature's designs, was as sharp and discerning as ever. And now it was singularly focused on meticulously uncovering the full, ugly truth. My wisdom, often derided as obsolete by him and his progressive friends, now became my most potent weapon. The growing tension within me coiled tighter with each passing day. He remained utterly oblivious, basking in his self-assured victory, convinced he had pulled off a clever little trick. But I was diligently building my case, piece by careful piece, like a master weaver meticulously crafting a complex tapestry. The initial, searing sting of betrayal had, by now, transmuted into a quiet, unyielding determination. He may have sold my hive, but he could not, would not, sell my spirit or my unwavering commitment to seeking justice. The psychological conflict between us, though largely unspoken, was becoming a palpable presence in our interactions. He continued to dismiss my concerns, subtly redirecting conversations away from anything financial, his eyes constantly darting, a telltale sign of his growing internal disquiet. I, in turn, honed my passive resistance, my knowing glances, my carefully phrased questions that seemed innocent on the surface, but were designed to subtly prod at his carefully constructed facade. The culmination of this tense, silent battle arrived with a gut-wrenching thud, a moment that felt like the bottom dropping out of my world. One afternoon, as I was tending to my beloved rose bushes, their thorny beauty a stark contrast to the ugliness unfolding in my life, a sleek, unfamiliar car, far too expensive for our quiet street, pulled up to David's house. Two men, sharply dressed in dark suits, their expressions unreadable, their postures exuding an air of cold, calculated authority, emerged from the vehicle. I watched, hidden by the thick, sheltering embrace of my hydrangea bushes, my heart hammering against my ribs as they entered his house without knocking, as if they owned the place. Their voices, though muffled by the closed doors, were stern, low and unmistakable, laced with an undeniable menace. David's usually confident, almost arrogant tone was conspicuously absent, replaced by a nervous, almost pathetic stammer. Then I heard it, a distinct, chilling phrase from one of the men, cutting through the silence of the afternoon like a shard of ice. The initial investment needs to be repaid, with interest. And we know about the other assets you've acquired. My blood ran cold, a glacial current flowing through my veins. Other assets. The words hung in the air, loaded with sinister implication. Could they be referring to anything else he might have acquired without my knowledge? My mind raced, frantically connecting the disparate dots that had been accumulating, the sudden, unexplained trips he'd taken, the increasing evasiveness in his responses, his almost desperate need for money that clearly wasn't being satisfied by his regular, respectable job. It became horrifyingly, sickeningly clear that David was deeply, dangerously involved in something far more sinister, far more extensive than I had initially imagined. This wasn't just about a stolen beehive. It was about a reckless, desperate gamble, a dangerous, high-stakes game, and I had a terrible, sinking feeling that I was unwittingly, tragically, a part of it. The questions swirled in my mind, a chaotic storm of fear and anger. What assets were they talking about? How deeply was David truly entangled in this criminal underworld? And most importantly, how, by some miracle, could I protect myself and, perhaps, even him, from the inevitable, devastating fallout that was surely looming? The tension was now almost unbearable, a physical weight pressing down on my chest. I felt a growing sense of dread, a chilling realization that my son, in his misguided, desperate pursuit of easy money and quick riches, had stumbled into a very dangerous, very unforgiving world. And I, the old woman he so readily dismissed, the relic he so carelessly discarded, was perhaps the only one who could truly see the full, terrifying extent of the danger he was in, the web of deceit he had spun around himself. My heart ached with a complex mixture of fear, profound disappointment, and a lingering, stubborn love. How had my son, once so full of promise, so full of potential, veered so catastrophically far off course? How had his superficial perception of value, his relentless pursuit of consumerism, led him down such a dark path? But amidst the churning turmoil, a flicker of something else ignited within me, a steely, unyielding determination. He had brought this upon himself, yes, but I would not, could not, stand by and passively watch it consume him entirely, especially if it threatened to drag me down into its murky depths with him. I knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within my soul, what I had to do. I had to continue watching, continue listening, and most importantly, continue preparing. For the inevitable sting was coming, a powerful, painful consequence of his actions, and I intended to be ready. This was no longer just about vengeance. It was about survival, and about salvaging whatever remained of my family. The anonymous letter, stark and chilling in its simplicity, arrived 2 days after the ominous visit from the two men. It contained no return address, no signature, just 2 cryptic, damning phrases scrawled in an unfamiliar hand. Ask David about the Maple Ridge property and the silver lining investments. This was the final piece of the puzzle, the catalytic spark that propelled me from passive observation into decisive, albeit subtle, action. Maple Ridge property and silver lining investments. These were the keys, the names that would unlock the horrifying truth of David's deceit and the perilous depths of his entanglement. My heart pounded, a frantic drumbeat against my ribs, a complex mixture of fear for what I would uncover and a grim determination to uncover it nonetheless. David had gone too far. He had not only stolen my cherished legacy, the living history of our family embodied in the Beehive, but he had also, recklessly and selfishly, entangled himself in something that had the potential to utterly destroy him, and, by extension, me too. I had to be careful, meticulous, like a diligent bee meticulously crafting each perfect hexagonal cell of honey, each one a testament to precision and forethought. I started my investigation with Maple Ridge property. Ethan had taught me a few basics about online research, enough to know where to begin. It turned out to be a vast tract of undeveloped land, deceptively idyllic in its online photos, recently purchased by a shell corporation. The name of the sole director of that corporation, listed in the thinly veiled public records? David, my son. And the source of funds for this seemingly legitimate purchase? A suspiciously large, hastily secured loan from Silver Lining Investments. My fingers trembled as I typed that name into the search bar. The results that flashed across the screen sent a truly sickening wave of dread through me. Silver Lining Investments was not a reputable financial institution. It was a notorious, albeit cleverly disguised, predatory lending firm known for trapping desperate individuals in escalating spirals of insurmountable debt through exorbitant high-interest loans and aggressively questionable collateral. Their modus operandi was to lure in those facing financial hardship, offering quick cash with terms that were designed to fail, eventually seizing assets. My blood ran cold, a glacial current flowing through my veins, when I discovered the shocking truth. The collateral for David's massive loan was not just the sprawling Maple Ridge property, but also my house. My house. The one I had lived in for 50 years, the one filled with the tangible memories of my late husband, the echoes of our shared life, the one where I had raised David himself. The one he had conned me into signing away with those deceptively benign, routine banking documents just a few months prior, when I had been laid up with the cough. The audacity, the profound, gut-wrenching betrayal was breathtaking, a physical blow to my chest. He had truly, arrogantly believed I was too old, too naive, too out of it to notice, to comprehend, to fight back. But he had, in his haste and overconfidence, left a trail, a subtle but undeniable trace, just like a bee leaving a distinct scent mark back to its hive, a beacon for others to follow. My deep, ingrained knowledge of bees, their intricate communication systems, their unwavering loyalty to the queen, their fierce, protective instincts when their hive was threatened, suddenly felt incredibly relevant, almost prophetic. I understood, intimately, the power of collective action, the devastating, inescapable impact of a well-coordinated sting. I recognized the hidden strength in seemingly small, insignificant details. It was time to bring in the cavalry, albeit a small, tech-savvy one. I reached out to Ethan, my grandson, with whom I had regrettably lost touch over the years, a void created by his ambition and my quiet, rural life. I knew he was incredibly good with technology, adept at navigating the complex, often opaque, digital world that was so foreign to me. I didn't reveal everything at first, not the full, ugly truth, just a carefully chosen hint of a serious family matter that urgently needed his unique investigative skills, his digital prowess. He, surprisingly, and with a keen intellectual curiosity, agreed to help, his interest undeniably piqued by the mysterious nature of my request. I sent him the names, Maple Ridge Property and Silver Lining Investments, and asked him to dig deeper, to follow the digital trail. Within what felt like mere days, Ethan, with his youthful energy and remarkable aptitude for online sleuthing, uncovered a vast and intricate network of fraudulent activities, layers of shell corporations designed to obscure ownership, and a tangled, nefarious web of illicit loans that would make even the most seasoned con artist blush with envy. He found undeniable, incontrovertible evidence of David diverting funds, fabricating crucial documents, and, most damningly, using my property as highly leveraged collateral in a grand, collapsing scheme that was teetering precariously on the brink of utter ruin. The sheer scale of his deception, the brazenness of his lies, was staggering, almost unbelievable. The ultimate psychological climax, for me, arrived when I received a package from Ethan, containing a thick binder overflowing with printed documents, screenshots, and meticulously organized digital files. It was all there. The forged signatures on the loan documents, my signature, crudely but effectively copied, the detailed financial transfers that showed my savings being funneled into his schemes, and, chillingly, the connections to other unsuspecting victims of Silver Lining Investments and their predatory practices. My son, my own flesh and blood, was not just dabbling, he was deeply, dangerously involved, a key player in a criminal enterprise. And the anonymous letter, the one that had provided the crucial clues, suddenly made perfect sense. Someone else was trying to expose this, someone trapped in the same web, perhaps hoping I could be the one to untangle it. The tension was now a physical presence in my life, a constant knot in my stomach. I felt like I was walking a perilous tightrope, each step fraught with the potential for disaster, for devastating consequences. The insidious encroachment of David's reckless ambition into my peaceful life was almost unbearable. He had brought this upon himself, but he had, with reckless abandon, dragged me into the vortex of his own making. I had to act, and swiftly. The intricate, almost military-like dance of the bees, their collective intelligence, their unwavering protective instincts when their hive was threatened, now served as my guiding metaphor, my strategic blueprint. I needed to be strategic, to anticipate his desperate moves, to strike at the precise, opportune moment. The game was undeniably on, and I was no longer just a passive, unwitting observer. I was a player, a formidable opponent, and I possessed a secret weapon he never saw coming, my unwavering, fierce love for my family, coupled with a lifetime of quiet, meticulous observation, and a grandmother's unyielding will to protect what was hers, no matter the cost. The thick binder of meticulously compiled evidence from Ethan was not merely paper, it was a potent weapon, forged from betrayal and tempered by relentless investigation. Maple Ridge Property and Silver Lining Investments were no longer just cryptic phrases, they were damning revelations, exposing a labyrinthine network of deceit constructed by my own son. My heart ached with a profound, almost unbearable mix of fear for David and an unyielding determination to see justice served, to reclaim what was rightfully mine. He had not only stolen my cherished legacy, the very soul of our family embodied in the Beehive, but he had also, with shocking audacity, entangled himself in something that had the potential to utterly destroy him, to obliterate his future and, by extension, to irrevocably shatter the quiet, peaceful life I had built. I had to be careful, meticulous, every move precise and deliberate, like a diligent bee meticulously crafting each perfect hexagonal cell of honey, each one a testament to precision, foresight, and unyielding purpose. I spent days poring over Ethan's findings, cross-referencing names, dates, and transactions. I discovered that Maple Ridge Property was a speculative land deal, heavily overvalued, and on the brink of collapse due to zoning issues David had overlooked or ignored in his haste. The Silver Lining Investments loan was usurious, designed to trap borrowers in an inescapable cycle of debt, with penalties and interest rates that made repayment virtually impossible. And then, the sickening realization, the small, almost insignificant-looking clause in the loan agreement, the one I had unknowingly signed, stipulated that if David defaulted, Silver Lining Investments had the right to seize all collateral, which included not only the virtually worthless Maple Ridge land, but also my house. My home. The very foundation of my existence, the sanctuary I had built with my late husband, the repository of decades of cherished memories. The audacity, the sheer, unbridled malice of his actions was breathtaking. He had truly believed I was too old, too naive, too out of it to notice, to comprehend, to fight back. But he had, in his overconfidence and desperation, left a trail, a subtle but undeniable trace, just like a bee leaving a distinct scent mark back to its hive, a beacon for others to follow. My deep, ingrained knowledge of bees, their intricate communication systems, their unwavering loyalty to the queen, their fierce, protective instincts when their hive was threatened, suddenly felt incredibly relevant, almost divinely inspired. I understood, intimately, the power of collective action, the devastating, inescapable impact of a well-coordinated sting. I recognized the hidden strength in seemingly small, insignificant details, the cumulative power of meticulous observation. This wasn't just about reclaiming my property, it was about demonstrating the profound, enduring value of wisdom and integrity, values he had so carelessly discarded. The ultimate climax arrived with a quiet, yet incredibly decisive, knock on my door. It wasn't the police, not yet. It was the two men from Silver Lining Investments, their faces grim, their suits impeccably pressed, exuding an air of cold, unyielding authority. They were here, they informed me with a chilling lack of emotion, to deliver the official notice. David had defaulted on his loan, as expected, and as per the signed agreement, they were now taking immediate possession of my house. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of fear and fury, but I held my composure, my face serene, almost placid. "I believe there's been a grave mistake," I said, my voice calm, steady, and remarkably firm, betraying none of the turmoil raging within me. "My son may have signed those papers, but he did so under false pretenses, under duress, and without full disclosure. And I have irrefutable proof." Their faces, initially smug, radiating an almost predatory satisfaction, wavered. A flicker of surprise, then something akin to unease, crossed their features. "Proof?" One of them scoffed, a sneer twisting his lips, an old woman's word against a legally binding, signed contract? He clearly believed he had the upper hand, that I was simply a deluded, senile old woman. "Not just my word," I replied, a small, knowing smile playing on my lips, a flicker of triumph in my eyes. "I have a grandson who's exceptionally good with computers. He's found a rather extensive, meticulously documented trail of irregularities, a few of which, I believe, might be of great interest to the federal authorities, particularly the FBI's white-collar crime division." I watched with a quiet, almost clinical satisfaction as their practiced confidence visibly crumbled. The subtle shift in their posture, the uneasy, furtive glances they exchanged, the sudden tension in their shoulders, it told me everything. They hadn't counted on an old woman fighting back, let alone with such meticulous evidence, such devastating precision. I laid out Ethan's detailed reports, the forged signatures on the loan documents, the meticulously traced illicit financial transfers that showed my savings being siphoned into David's fraudulent schemes, and, most powerfully, the undeniable connections to other unsuspecting victims of their predatory practices, a long list of people they had systematically ruined. I showed them, with calm, irrefutable logic, how David had manipulated me, how he had sold the Beehive, my irreplaceable family heirloom, to generate quick, desperate cash for his initial investment, unknowingly leaving a breadcrumb trail for me to follow, a beacon of his betrayal. The grand finale was not an explosion of anger or a dramatic confrontation, but a quiet, satisfying triumph of meticulous justice. The Silver Lining Investments representatives, realizing the sheer depth and inescapable nature of the legal quagmire they were facing, their criminal enterprise exposed, their carefully constructed facade shattered, quickly capitulated. Their faces, once so self-assured, were now pale with a profound, sickening defeat. They agreed, in hushed, almost desperate tones, to void the contract for my house, to release all claims on my property, and, significantly, promised to drop all charges and not pursue legal action against David in exchange for my silence and the comprehensive evidence I had so painstakingly compiled. Evidence, I pointed out, that not only implicated my son but, far more devastatingly, exposed their widespread, illegal activities to the fullest extent. I, in turn, offered to hold on to the evidence for a reasonable period, implying a slight delay in delivering it to the authorities, giving them a narrow window to reconsider their options and clean up their own mess. They quickly agreed, their relief almost palpable, their carefully constructed world of deceit crumbling around them. David was spared the full, brutal wrath of the law, a consequence I spared him not out of weakness, but out of a deeper, more enduring love. But he faced a different, perhaps even more profound, kind of reckoning. When he eventually found out what I had done, how I, the old woman he had so casually dismissed, had not only uncovered the full, ugly extent of his deception, but had then, paradoxically, saved him from a far worse, utterly ruinous fate. His initial shock turned to a profound, searing shame. He saw the missing Beehive not as a trivial loss, easily replaced, but as the very first domino in a catastrophic chain of events that had nearly cost him everything: his reputation, his freedom, his future. and the last vestiges of our relationship. He finally saw my old-fashioned ways, my quiet wisdom, my unwavering commitment to family and tradition, not as weakness or senility, but as a deep, unyielding strength, a moral compass he had so desperately lacked. He finally saw me, not as a dusty relic of the past, an obstacle to his progress, but as a priceless source of immense power, boundless love, and profound, enduring wisdom. He returned the Beehive, not the exact same one, for that was impossible, but a new, beautifully crafted structure, filled with a vibrant, healthy colony of bees, a living symbol of renewal, of his profound apology, and a symbolic, heartfelt return to our family's deep, sustaining roots. He even, to my enduring surprise and quiet satisfaction, started attending a support group for people entangled in financial scams, slowly, painfully, beginning to mend the extensive damage he had inflicted upon himself and, more broadly, upon his moral compass and his life. Our relationship, once strained to the breaking point by his dismissiveness, his greed, and my silent frustration, began a slow, arduous, but genuinely heartfelt process of healing. He finally listened, truly listened, when I spoke of the bees, of the lessons they taught about community, about hard work, about the delicate balance of life. And sometimes, when he visited, I'd even catch him watching them, a thoughtful, almost reverent expression on his face, a glimmer of understanding in his eyes. The family ties, once frayed and almost severed by ambition and unchecked greed, began to reestablish themselves, strengthened by honesty, painful truth, and newly rediscovered mutual respect. And as for me, I continued tending to my beloved bees, their gentle, persistent hum a continuous testament to resilience, to the quiet, enduring power of wisdom, and to the profound, sometimes painful, but ultimately sweetness of justice and the possibility of redemption within a family. The sting had been delivered, not with malice, but with a fierce, unwavering love, a love strong enough to save even a misguided son from himself.